show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
What is up, Nickel City Mafia? Welcome to another edition of Wednesday Night Bills Tailgate. We've got a good one for you tonight, and really good one tonight. I mean, we have the biggest game of the year. It's only week 4, and it can't get any bigger than this game against the Dolphins this week. Joining me as always, as you know, my co-host Jake Podger. Jake, how you doing tonight?
Fantastic, Mike. I brought the beers tonight. We got a little blue light action going. Throwing it back to the good old days when I used to crack open a nice cold one on our show. Figured it goes with the tailgate theme. Why not? We serve $1 drinks on Sunday nights. I don't know what the special is tonight, but I'm ready to do it. You know, it's Dolphins week, baby. I'm ready to get right into it.
I tried to work it out so that we can get those wings and the drinks on the Wednesday show. They said, no, we can't do it. We can only,
Terrible.
We're only available on Sunday nights. But hey, have the drink of your choice tonight. This is going to be a good one. Then also joining us, and let me chat here real quick. Jake sounding louder. Jake always sounds a little louder, doesn't he? So we're getting a little, let's adjust that real quick.
A loud voice as it is, you know.
Joining us tonight is maybe the most sought after YouTube content creator on the planet. I mean, he had probably the best week of his life. I'll let him tell you all about it because this man's a newly married man on Saturday. And I said I'll let him tell you, but I got to tell you because first of all, congratulations, Keith. You're married on Saturday to the love of your life, who is a Dolphin fan. You both then get to watch the game on Sunday, and you see your Dolphin team drop 70 on an NFL team. That's just ridiculous. And then your team is in first place. It doesn't get any better, my friend. I can't think of another scenario. Maybe I can, maybe one or two other scenarios, but talk to me, Keith, man. Congratulations. And how does it feel?
Thank you, Mike. It feels great. It feels great. I love being married to her. We've been together for a while now, so not much has changed on that front. You know, we've been living together for a while as well. So, but and then the Dolphins dropped 70, and we just had a good old time watching that one. You know, at one point we were eating some food, and I went out to the kitchen, and they scored another touchdown.
You blink and you miss some action. It's unbelievable, man.
Crazy. Yeah. That's how that game went. But you know, we had a great wedding on Saturday, and we had a wonderful time. And she's a Dolphins fan. She's a converted Dolphins fan. She never actually watched football until she met me, and now she's learning the sport and getting into the game. You know, every bit as much as I am. It's really hot, actually. It's really cool to see.
I'll tell you what, that's a special thing because both Jake and I, we don't have wives who will watch the game with us. I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing. I think sometimes it's a good thing because my wife doesn't like to see the version of me when the Bills are playing, especially if they're losing. And Jake, same thing for you, I'm sure.
Yeah, likewise, for sure. Yeah.
So you've got a good thing going on there, Keith, for sure. So good stuff. So let's get into it, man. This is week 4 in Highmark. And I said this is going to be the showdown at the OK Corral. Yes, we have some sound effects tonight bringing to you. There we go.
Look at Keith's little
Keith,
stare down.
Keith's ready.
I'm getting intimidated already. Come on now.
If we happen to get any super chats, we're going to jam a little bit to this tune right here. Yeah. Let's go. Yes. Love it. We got some fun sounds going tonight. But I want to start with you, Keith. So I did some checking. So last year, I want to talk to you about, after 3 games, how your team started. So out of the gate, you were 3-0 last year.
Yeah.
Tua threw for 925 passing yards on 101 passing attempts. 2 interceptions, 8 touchdowns, 6 sacks. This year, after 3 games, Tua's thrown for 1,024 yards on the same number, 101 passing attempts. How crazy is that, guys? Both last year and this year, through 3 games, 101 passing attempts. He's thrown for pretty much 100 yards more this year. He's got 8 TDs, touchdowns, same as the first 3 games of last year. 2 interceptions. Oh my God, this is looking like a repeat here. The big difference is he's got 1 sack this year versus 8 last year. So, Keith, you've watched these guys through 3 games. Obviously, the sack numbers are down, but for your offensive line is doing a much better job so far. But what other big changes? What has happened? Because I feel like this O-line, I've asked you this question, is probably the number one question that people in the channel has been asking you. What has changed with this team?
Well, I guess I have to first and foremost give credit to Butch Barry, the Dolphins' new offensive line coach. He came over from Denver. He was fired rather unceremoniously last year from Denver, and he's come over and he's done a really nice job with these guys. But Tua's getting the ball out quickly. Mike McDaniel's calling much better games. I think he's evolved as a coach, as a play caller, and it's great to see. Now, obviously they were 3-0 through 3 games last year, but they didn't really get that definitive signature win like they got against Denver last Sunday. And I think that's the difference, where they barely scraped by the Patriots. They came back against the Ravens and barely won that one, and then barely scraped by against the Bills. Whereas, they won. They won week 1 against the Chargers this year. It was a closer game. It was a shootout, and they won against the Patriots. It was a game that didn't feel particularly close, even though the score indicates otherwise. And then that game against the Broncos. So this Dolphins team does feel different from last year to me. How different? Time will tell.
Yeah, so one of the big things is your running game, right? I feel like that's something that's changed quite a bit. I mean, you guys dropped 726 yards on the Broncos. That's insane. And you said it early on in the year, I think before the season even started, that you wanted to see this team run more. You said they did well when they ran last year, but they'd get away from it. Is that something they've also got a bigger emphasis on this year?
Absolutely.
So far?
Not so much in the Chargers game, but in the Patriots game and the Broncos game especially. When you're running the ball the way they were against the Broncos, why stop? So, that's something that they've emphasized, and that's something that I wanted them to emphasize because, like I said, they didn't run the ball much last year, but when they did, they were efficient while doing it. They ran the ball well against the Bills in the December game especially. Raheem Mostert, I think, went for over 100 yards in that game. So, they're a good running team, and I think their offensive line is better suited to run blocking than it is to pass blocking for the most part. So I wanted to see them run the ball more, and they seem willing to do so. So that's another thing that's really been encouraging. It's been really good to see.
Yeah. So Jake, let me throw it to you, man. What are you seeing on this team this year, looking at the Dolphins, and what has you concerned versus last year? I mean, by the way, they got off to a 3-0 start last year. They lost 3 consecutive games. I know in that Dolphin game against the Bills last year, we saw right before halftime that that Tua got hurt. We thought he wouldn't be back in that game. He certainly suffered a concussion. They let him back in the game. He finished. They won the game. I think it was the following week that he took the big hit, which knocked him out. And I think he missed the next 2.5 games. So they lost those 3 games. Correct me if I'm wrong, Keith, but I think that's what happened if I remember correctly.
They did. He got knocked out in the Bengals game, and they lost. Well, they lost until he came back. They got absolutely blown out by the Jets the following week, and they lost Teddy Bridgewater in that game. And the next 3, and that's why I'm cautiously optimistic here, because I'm trying to temper my expectations, because last year I remember last year I was on cloud 9 last year after a 3-0 start, and then the wheels came off. And that's how quickly it can come off in the NFL, just one injury like that.
Yeah, sorry, Jake.
No, that's okay.
I shut you down. Let me throw it back over to you.
You're spot on. Yeah, you're spot on with all that. And first off, Keith, love that you paid some homage to Butch Barry, the O-line coach there. Done a really nice job. He comes from before the Broncos, he was with the 49ers prior to that and the Packers before that. And he was very instrumental in how those, being able to utilize those backs there. I think he did a really, really good job. So has familiarity already with Mike McDaniel and also LaFleur coaching with him, who's very tight with McDaniel as well. and he's been around success. Trent Williams, David Bakhtiari, those are two of the premier tackles in the NFL, and I think that's kind of translated over to now with how he's been working with this Dolphins team. And, dude, I'll tell you what, you got a really good one in him, and that O-line is definitely showing out this year. Absolutely, I think the run game is a huge difference for you guys. And I will say this, last year, specifically in that 32-29 Saturday night game, you guys were running the ball pretty effectively in that game. Yeah. And then you sort of just got away from it. And I was wondering why, because I feel like that could have really altered the outcome of that game a little bit. Could have ended up with a W, to be honest with you, especially with the weather, the way it was and all that. And I feel like at times last year, I didn't watch every Dolphins game or anything like that, but I feel like they would kind of give you just a little bit of a teaser of it, and then they just get away from it. And then they do something kind of stupid. They try to get too cute. And I think that goes to show with Mike McDaniel this year, his maturity as a coach, kind of staying true to a specific game plan. And also, there is no guy out there that throws his receivers open, at least schemes his receiver open better than Mike McDaniel. So tremendous job by him this year, staying disciplined, and then bringing in that piece of the game that they were missing last year. You saw sprinkles of it, but now this year it's all systems go. Drafting Devon Achane. Achane is what he wants it to be pronounced as now, not a chain. I've been pronouncing it Achane, as is the rest of the world for the last 3 weeks probably. But shoot, man, you guys got some really good backs there. I don't think people expected him to come on as fast as he did. We talked about this yesterday, obviously having Jeff Wilson go down with injury, and you also had Selvin Ahmed as well. It's awesome, though, for you guys. I mean, I think you got two super explosive backs and guys that are super dangerous. They can run swing patterns. They can line up at the receiver position. It's just it's really amazing what I've seen this offense become. And, yeah, to say I'm not worried is just false. I mean, I'm a little scared, to be honest with you. I think the foot speed is what scares me the most. And obviously just the game plan going into this. We got to get into some passing lanes because that's really the only way we're going to end up winning this game.
Yeah, I agree, Jake. I mean, I'm so anxious to get this thing going. I mean, we're a little less than 4 days away, but it can't come soon enough. And so let me just throw some more numbers out before I have you talk, Jake. And by the way, you did a great job showing some slides yesterday on the AFC East Summit. If you haven't checked out the Summit show, you got to check that show out. It has a rep from every team in the AFC East, and the guys did a fantastic job. Keith is one of them. He's one of the founders of the AFC East Summit show, and he does an excellent job. So let me throw some numbers out to you real quick. So through 3 games, Miami's averaging 550 yards per game on offense. They're rushing for 188 yards on offense per game. Buffalo, they're 383 yards per game. Not bad. They're averaging 149 rushing yards per game. Passing yards, Miami 362 per game, and Buffalo 234, which is pretty low for the Bills, Jake. And I'm going to throw it to you on this one because a lot of people are like, "What's going on?" I mean, Josh Allen should be throwing for 300 plus yards every game, right? What's going on?
This is very similar to what Pat Mahomes had to kind of go through last year. Losing Tyreek Hill, he had to learn to take what the defense gives him a little bit. He couldn't just throw it deep every single time. And I think the Bills tried to do that a lot last year, and it resulted in a lot of really bad turnovers. So this year, coming into the season, it was kind of a repeat of what we started to see last year develop a little bit. Josh Allen forcing these throws downfield because he would just get bored. Like, the guy wants to put up points, and sometimes it gets to the level where he wants to put up points so bad that he's actually hurting our team, and that's exactly what happened against the Jets. So then the following week, he comes out against the Raiders, and he does exactly what he's supposed to do. Only threw 7 incompletions, took what the defense gave him. When he did see an opening downfield, he threw it. He took that shot. He still did Josh Allen-like things, still made some incredible throws while he was at it. And I think for him, that's going to be the story of this season. Like, he needs to be more mature in that sense, and we're starting to see a little bit of that. Over the last 2 games, he really did a nice job of, kind of just staying composed, not getting sugar high, and not forcing the errant throws like he would in the past, So that's why the yardage is a little bit down. I mean, even last game, he only threw for 212 yards, but he did all the right things. And on top of that, James Cook with 98 rushing yards. I mean, that's something we haven't seen a whole lot of recently. We haven't had a 1,000-yard back since Shady McCoy in 2016, I believe. So you're talking an 8-year span now almost that we haven't had a 1,000-yard rusher. And I'm not saying that's the key to us winning games, but it's nice to have that extra asset on offense, someone that you can rely on in that sense. And we got a three-headed monster in him, Latavius Murray, and Damian Harris to take a little bit of pressure off. And then it's like, hey, that opens things up for the passing game even more so. And I think this game specifically, it'll be great if we could use our tight ends a little bit more, especially in the middle of the field. Vic Fangio is kind of known for, as Sean kind of let us know yesterday on our AFC East Summit show in the comments, he had mentioned, leaving the middle of the field kind of open, it allows for the tight ends to, get a little bit more of the targets. And on top of that, it dares you to run the football. So excited to see what the Bills draw up for this one.
Yeah, Jake. So just you said it right. So that's another thing. We talked about the good run game from Miami. By the way, they're the number one running team in the NFL. Yeah. Buffalo's not far behind. Buffalo's at number 8. So I said that the Dolphins average 188 rushing yards per game. Buffalo's at 149.3. And that's a huge difference from last year. And
it's not all Josh Allen this year.
Correct. And like you said, we got the three-headed monster back there. I think you're doing disservice to your boy Gilliam, so I think we got the four-headed monster.
Oh yeah, baby, I love that.
But also too, these two teams are the top scoring teams in the NFL. So points per game, Dolphins 43.3, and Buffalo at 30.3. So top two scoring teams. Like I said, the over is 53.3. I heard. I mean, I'm smashing that. We got. By the way, I want to say hi to Troy out there. And as you know, Troy is a huge Dolphin fan. So there you go, Keith. He's my best friend. Don't ask me how we've been able to stay friends for so long. It's been something like, I don't know, 30-something years, man. We've stuck it out together. And we were back in the days with the Kelly and the Marino. I mean, we were doing fantasy football when fantasy football rules were in a magazine. Yeah, there were magazines. I don't know if people even know what that is these days. But there are magazines. We got all the rules. We started a little fantasy football show. We worked for a sporting goods store. And we started a fantasy football
Should it probably take you a week to add up those scores?
Oh, dude. The way you got the scores, you went to get the newspaper on Monday morning, checked out the stats. Somebody added it up. But it was a lot of fun back there. But yes, he's a long-standing Dolphin fan, loves them, and he's just on fire. He couldn't be happier, just like you, Keith. He's texting me. He's like, "Oh my God, Mike, what is happening? 70 points. What's going on?" And so so he's saying from newspaper stats, we'd go.
I love it.
Get the USA Today. Remember they had those stands, or actually you would just go into any corner liquor store, and they had the newspaper there for you. You pick it up, go sit down, and you add up everyone's scores. So. Good times back then. Good times back then. So let me see here. And we got Brett out there. Good to see you, buddy, from the Go Bills podcast. Sup, man?
Thank you, Brett.
Great show. And congrats to Keith on getting married once again.
Hell yeah, Keith.
So I kind of want to stick on the offensive side of thing. And Jake, I mean, you mentioned the run game. But talk a little bit about the O-line that has changed this year and how things have been developing for the first 3 weeks with this new line for the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, well, it starts with Osiris Torrance, the rookie of all people. He's come in and he's been such a gem. And I had a good feeling about him coming into the draft process. He was touted as a first-round pick for a reason, and we're starting to see that. You know, the maturity with him, being able to make calls at the line first off, go on silent count in his very first game of the season, and being mature enough to step in, always looking inside to help guys out, always looking outside, trying to help Spencer Brown out even. I mean, he has been nothing short of fantastic. He's kind of like an old school Muller too. He's a hat on a hat football guy. He's always looking to, make contact. And, again, like I mentioned, he's always looking to help. So from what I've seen with him, it's just been fantastic. And across the board, I think it's kind of echoed across our entire offensive line this year. I mean, the guys have done a really, really good job up front. I think Josh has been sacked like 6 or 7 times this year.
7 times, sir. 7 times.
But 3 of them were technically like on him. So I would say really only 4 times he's been sacked. And honestly, we know how Josh Allen plays football. It's not easy to play offensive line when you have Josh Allen behind you trying to be Superman half the time out there. And that's not a bad thing about him or anything like that. It's just sometimes, it can kind of get away from you. And these DNs, when you give them that much time, something's going to happen like a sack where Josh is trying to make a play. So I love what these guys have done. We talked a little bit about our running game this year and that being somewhat existent. And, at times it is a little frustrating because you still see those second and long runs. And I think Ken Dorsey needs to get away from that. But when he calls, these other run plays when we're actually kind of opening it up a little bit and dishing it out a little bit, it really seems to work. And there are some big gaping holes, man. Let me tell you, these guys are doing a tremendous job. We got 13 personnel running out there sometimes. You got Quentin Morris, Dawson Knox, Dalton Kincaid. All those guys are doing a tremendous job helping out the tackles. And I'm loving what I'm seeing from these guys. It's been a real joy. And I think I could say this for all of the AFC East teams, especially the Dolphins and the Bills. We have absolutely outperformed what our expectations are thus far this year.
The whole team or just on the O-line?
Just on the O-line, I'm saying, specifically to that. Yes.
Yeah, so I know you guys talked about that last night on the Summit Show, for sure.
Yep.
Troy, I totally agree. This week is the test to see if they are real. And, we're talking to Keith. We have Keith on the show tonight, but he's the most humble guy that you'll know. Most Dolphin fans are like, Super Bowl, we got it. They're disrespecting every other team, especially the Bills. But what I love about Keith is he's even earlier before the season even started, and yesterday on the show he said, look, until we beat the Bills, they're the Kings. Got to beat it. We got to see it get done. They're the king of the hill in the AFC East. So talk to me a little more, Keith, about what else is going on with that offensive side of the ball for you guys. Obviously, you're running the ball better. You're blocking better for Tua, but is it more than just the blocking? Is the passing plays that's being dialed up for Tua changing? And then talk to me about how's Waddle doing? Is he going to be back for this game because he missed last game?
Well, first and foremost, Waddle looks to be trending in the right direction. He's going to practice tomorrow, and it's basically the last hurdle he has to cross in order to play on Sunday. So if he practices tomorrow, there's no issues. We'll see Jalen Waddle out there on Sunday. And you know what? The Dolphins need him because they lost River Craycraft for a little while. He got hurt in the game against the Broncos. So we're going to need him. Dermot Smythe's a little banged up. Connor Williams is a little banged up. So there are some injuries to deal with on the Miami Dolphins. Now, as far as their passing game goes, I mean, I think it's just a whole maturity of Mike McDaniel. We're seeing the maturity of Mike McDaniel as a head coach. You give him a pass last year somewhat, don't you? Because he was a rookie coach. And rookie coaches sometimes, most of the time, don't get it right off the bat. So, he showed, in like you said earlier, Mike, where the Dolphins, or like you said, Jake, where the Dolphins would get away from the running game. And you didn't really know why. It was inexplicable why they would get away from the running game the way they did. And, that's a head coach pressing for more points. And this year he's willing to take what the defense is going to give him. And I think Tua is more willing to do that. He's thrown a couple of bad interceptions. Both of his interceptions were him forcing a ball into a window where he shouldn't have been throwing it into. But I think it's just the whole team is kind of maturing before our eyes right now. But you're right, Mike. The Dolphins don't get to – this is a test for the Dolphins this week. This is a test to see if they can – if they want to be counted amongst the contenders in the AFC, they have to beat the Bills. And that's all there is to it. And until they do, I have to reserve my praise. I have to keep it reserved,
Yeah. So Troy's saying the same thing. As I said, he said, I absolutely agree. Have to beat the Bills or at least have it be a tight game. What do you think about that, Jake? I know a lot of people say that. At least if we play them close, I feel good about that. Do you believe in that?
I do believe in somewhat of a moral victory. But usually I only believe in that unless the team is that bad that they have to rely on a moral victory. If you're the Chicago Bears, you have to rely on a moral victory. But if you're the Miami Dolphins, I'm pissed off as hell if I don't win this game. This is, we're supposed to be a better team this year. Right, exactly.
We're past that.
And I think I could say the same for both of our teams. We are at the point now where we're expecting to win every game. We're expecting to win a Super Bowl. And that's the standard. And that's okay. That's a beautiful place to be in, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to ask you both, first of all, Jake, while I'm asking Keith this, can you check on the injury report for the Bills? I know it's early.
Yeah.
You obviously won't know, but I want to know kind of who's right now kind of a concern. Keith had mentioned a few players as well. But staying on the offense, we'll get to the defense. Don't worry, because that's where the Bills have the slight edge right now after 3 games. Right now, it's all Dolphins on the offensive side of things. But if there's one thing you want to see, I mean, the team's been lighting it up. But if there anything on offense that you would like to see improved a little bit more, especially going against the Bills?
Oh, you're talking to me? I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. That was to you, Dolphin.
I was waiting. It was a dramatic pause.
Hold on.
There it is.
There we go.
There it is. Look at that. Look at the stare down.
Yeah, Keith, that was to you. Is there anything anything you would like to see them improve? It's hard to improve on the numbers that I just threw out there. It's hard to improve on dropping 70 on a team and putting up 726 yards. But is there anything?
I think first thing we have to keep in perspective here, the Dolphins are the number 1 rushing team in the NFL. They've played 3 games, and they ran for a ton of yards against the Broncos. Those numbers are a little skewed. It's important to – they are the number 1, technically the number 1 rushing team in the NFL. Let's pump the brakes on that a little bit. I think offensively, Tua needs to throw outside the numbers a little bit more. I'd like to see him be able to sit back in the pocket a little bit longer and go through his progressions, because he hasn't really been able to do that so much. There's always room for improvement. Yes, and the biggest thing I want the Dolphins to improve on is the unforced errors. There's been a ton of botched snaps between Tua Tagovailoa and Connor Williams. There's been unforced penalties, dumb holding penalties by Connor Williams mostly, where they're just drive killers. And so there's always room for improvement. Even if you have been playing as well as the Dolphins have been playing, but the unforced errors have to stop. Against the Patriots, their 5 drives against the Patriots ended because of unforced errors. Whether it's a botched snap or a holding call or a dropped pass or, what have you. That game could have been a blowout, much in the same vein the Broncos game was, but Dolphins couldn't put them away because of those unforced errors.
Yeah, good stuff there. I want to say
you can't do that against the Bills. I just have to add that you can't do that against the Bills. Against the Patriots, you might be able to get away with it, but against the Bills, that's going to be a killer.
Yeah. So, Trek Reviewer, good to see you out there as always. I know you were in earlier. Sorry to get back to you. But, yes, the last rookie guard we had played this well was Reuben Brown.
Love
Jake.
that. Yeah.
And then
Reuben Brown.
Troy coming
9-time
back in
Pro
to
Bowl.
say, yeah, I mean, the Broncos game is a throwaway game because the numbers were so ridiculous. I still feel like the defense needs to improve. We're going to get to the defensive side here in a little bit. So if you before we move on to the defensive side of the ball, and we got Big Happy out there. Good to see you, Big Happy. I think we saw Big Happy recently, right?
Yes, we did.
All right. Before I forget, we actually hired someone to say this. I just want to throw this out here real quick because as I'm talking through the show, we find that I get a little tired sometimes. I start coughing if I talk too much. So this one's for our new hired Johnny. Johnny's over here on the side. Go ahead, Johnny.
For more awesome content, like and subscribe now.
He's got that deep voice.
Hell yeah, Johnny. All right. You know what we need
Johnny.
to do now? We got to get the Chris Berman soundboard where he says nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. Now that would be good. We need that too, Mike.
It's kind of hard to get some of these clips because they're, you got the copyright thing to contend with. But hey, if we can get a sound alike, I feel like somebody can imitate Chris and do that for us, and then we'll record it.
We got to call up like Frank Caliendo or something who does like impressions. Someone that does impressions.
Oh, yeah. So Big Happy, and then we got Christopher Roseberg. Go Bills. Good
baby.
to see you out there. Look, I see 9 folks. I see some folks out there listening, watching in the channel. Let us know where you're from. Let us know if you're a Bills fan, Dolphins fan. I'd expect some Dolphins fan to be checking out this show this week, especially because you got your rep over here, Dolphin Keith. He's not going to let us get away with anything. I feel like, Jake and I always try to get a rep from the other side. It's harder to do these days, but at least when it's the AFC East, we have our guys from the Summit Show. And it's always good because as much as we try to represent the other team, Jake, we just don't know that team. Just like we know our Bills. We're watching them. Every little thing they do. Keith is doing that for the Dolphins. And I feel like even though we try to represent the other team, we always miss something. We say something wrong. But I'll tell you what, we got a lot of cool fans out there from other fan bases that kind of come in on the comments. They let us know. They correct us. And it's all cool. So far, it's been a lot of fun interacting with those fan bases.
Without a doubt.
So, Jake, so let me ask you. Bills, I mean, we've seen an improvement. Very good. Josh Allen taking what the defense gives him. You're going against Miami. Are you going to do anything different on the offensive side of the ball than we've done in the first 3 weeks? What do you think the offense has to do against that defense of the Dolphins?
I still look at the Dolphins as like a bend don't break defense, so nothing too out of the ordinary that what we've been doing over the past few weeks. The only thing I really would like to see more of is involvement with the tight ends, and I think Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid can have themselves a big day this week if we stay to the course. You know, it looked like we were going to get them involved early last week, but it really was only the first 2 drives, really, and then after that, they were both non-existent, but played a big part in the running game, of course, you know, sending out some big blocks, you know, out in the open and the second level and all that good stuff. But I look to see them get a little bit more involved in the passing game this week.
Love it. I want to say this. So my dad, he says, I spent time at War Memorial. Now I live in SoCal, yeah. So he and I, obviously from Buffalo. I moved to California originally because my dad was out there in Cali, and I joined them here at George Air Force Base up there in Victorville. And then Big Happy saying, I'm a Cowboys fan. Sorry about the 90s, but I'm from Iowa. Big Micah Hyde guy.
Let's go, baby. I love that.
And he says, been a closet Bills fan since he was drafted. All right, Big Happy.
Yeah.
Good to hear that. And yes, you know, we're still reeling from those 90 losses. Those damn Cowboys. Those damn Cowboys. Let me tell you. I think that covers the channel. Let's move over to the defensive side, guys, because this is where I think the Bills, right now, through 3 games, have the slight edge. So let me just give you some.
Hey, by the way, I got the injury report here, Mike.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
So we got Ryan Bates, which that was actually the only injury to happen from that Commanders game. He came out with an ankle injury in that game.
Okay.
He did not practice today. Now, he is more of a depth piece for us, but you hate to see a guy like that go down because, God forbid, if Mitch Morse gets hurt, that's our backup center. And then he could also play the guard position. He can really play any position on the offensive line, but he's technically our backup center right now. So Ryan Bates with an ankle injury. They did list Leonard Floyd as well as our boy Micah Hyde. They were both DNPs today, but I think they're both supposed to play on Sunday. I think it's more precautionary. Leonard Floyd had that ankle injury going into last week. He looked just fine. He had 2 sacks. Same with Micah Hyde with an interception. Both safeties played extremely well. And actually, speaking of the other safety, Jordan Poyer, also on the injury report with a knee injury with the DNP. Saran Neal with an ankle injury, DNP. And then Taron Johnson with a hip injury who was limited. So not great. Seeing mainly defensive players on this list, specifically in the secondary. You hate seeing stuff like that. I think they all will play on Sunday, and this is more precautionary, like I said, but you just never want to curse anything like that, and you hate seeing guys like these players on the list. You know, of course they have to report every injury, but hopefully everything's good there.
Yeah. What about you, Keith? Did you have anything else other than Waddle? Now Waddle's recovering from a concussion, right?
Yes, he is.
Okay. Anybody else that you're concerned not playing this week?
Well, I'm concerned about Connor Williams. I'm concerned about the continued progression of. So I'm looking at their injury report right now. First injury report against the Bills. Armstead didn't practice, but that's par for the course. Armstead isn't going to practice for the rest of the season.
He never does. It was like every Bills game I remember last year, we'd look at the Dolphins injury report. He was on every single one of them. Crazy. Yeah. And he'd always play.
Yeah. So Jalen Phillips didn't practice today. He got hurt in the game. He injured a quad in the game last week. Oh, no. Yeah, I think it was a quad in the game last week against the Broncos. Connor Williams didn't practice today, injured a groin. So in those guys' stead, if those guys can't play, it would be Andrew Van Ginkel playing for Jalen Phillips, who played very well against the Patriots, and it would be Liam Eichenberg, who doesn't inspire a lot of confidence starting at center for the Dolphins
Oh, baby.
instead of Connor Williams. So I'm really hoping those guys can get some practice in the rest of the week, and hopefully they can go on Sunday. It's still early. It's only Wednesday.
Real early. Yeah, it's real early. These guys will, you'll start to see them. I mean, it's check on Friday, check on Saturday, and then an hour before you'll know the final status. But yeah, I feel it's kind of early, but good to know. At least you kind of know what's happening midweek. I want to throw this to you, Jake, because big question from Big Happy. Speaking of a running game, how do you contain Mike McDaniel's play calling now that he has two speedsters? Like you said, Jake, this is a track team right here. So
yeah, number one, you got to keep everything in front of you. There's no allowing anyone to get behind you, because the second they do, they're gone. You're not going to catch up with them, plain and simple. It's just not going to happen. You cannot coach speed. The other way you do so is getting your hands up. You got to get in the way of passing lanes. And not sure how effective, and I hate saying this, but not sure how effective the pass rush is going to be, because Tua gets rid of the football so quickly. We talked about it yesterday a little bit. It's like 2.2 seconds. The ball's out. It's like the fastest in the league. So similar to how the Bengals approached their game in the playoffs against us last year, just quick passes, that's kind of similar to what the Dolphins do. They have just a really brilliant way of scheming these receivers open. They're so damn fast. Tua is basically John Stockton out there as a point guard, just making the right throws, and he's damn accurate too. I mean, he's doing his part, and he's been able to make the deep throws when he has to as well. So no discredit to him for that, but he's able to just kind of just dump it right and put it right where he needs to put it and let the guys run. So obviously, just not allowing them to get behind you, keeping everything in front of you, and tackling, wrapping up, because we have not been a great tackling team over the years, Mike. We need to tackle.
Yeah, I totally agree, Jake. I mean, we've seen it early on in the season as well. But yeah, let's see what happens there. This concerns me because this Dolphin team now really is utilizing that run game, and if that passing game's not working, they can count on that run game now. But let's throw it over to the defensive side of the ball, and let me throw it to you, Keith, our guest, to talk about your defense. What you've seen through 3 weeks. I will say right now, the Bills are number 2 in the league with points against at an incredible, only giving up 11.7 points per game, whereas the Dolphins are number 21 in the league, giving up 23.7. So talk to me, and again, some of that could have been garbage points. I mean, at the end of that Denver game, I don't know, but what are you seeing with this defense? Is it what it was last year? Is it better? Is it disappointing you so far? Talk to us.
They are improving. They're doing like Jake said, the bend don't break type of style here. But I was not happy after the Chargers game in Week 1. Austin Eckler ran all over the field. He ran all over the Dolphins. It was rough. It was rough to watch, and the Dolphins, as a result, barely escaped with a victory. Week 2 against the Patriots, they improved, but against a less talented offense. And then while the game was still in question against the Broncos last week in the first half, the Broncos moved the ball pretty well against the Dolphins. People look at 70-20 and they think it was a blowout, but in the first half, the game was still up in the air. It wasn't just the Dolphins dominated from Jump Street. Their offense did, but their defense struggled against the bigger receivers in Cortland Sutton and Javonte Williams. They had a tough time wrapping that guy up. So the Dolphins need to improve in every area. And I know Vic Fangio's scheme is notoriously hard to pick up, when you haven't played in it before. So maybe that's part of it. Maybe that's part of why they've been struggling so much, because the talent on that side of the ball hasn't equaled their production thus far this season. So what I'm looking for the Dolphins to do against the Bills, Josh Allen has owned the Dolphins throughout his career. We all know that. He averages he's got a 106 passer rating against the Dolphins lifetime, and he averages 55 yards rushing per game against the Dolphins. The Dolphins need to limit that. They need to get a spy on Josh Allen first and foremost. I nominate Brandon Jones, who hasn't really been used much because he kind of doesn't have a position within Vic Fangio's scheme as a true strong safety. So maybe you bring Brandon Jones out there and try and spy Josh Allen and try and have him help and run support, because I think the Bills are going to try and run the ball against the Dolphins. After James Cook's success last week against the Commanders, I could see them running the ball a lot more than they otherwise would have.
Now, early in the season, you were talking up Jalen Phillips.
Yes.
Right. And you had him getting 10 plus sacks. How's he doing so far?
Not great, actually. He hasn't had a great season thus far. He's gotten a few pressures. He's out there and he's rushing the passer and he's doing a good job, but he's not doing a great job at contain. And there were a couple of plays last week against the Broncos, actually, where he kind of rushed himself out of the play. And Russell Wilson was able to take advantage of that because he didn't have to worry about Jalen Phillips on the right end there. So Jalen Phillips also needs to improve. I was expecting more from him. And I think going forward, we'll get more from him. But right now, he's not playing up to nobody on the defense is really playing up to expectations, if we're being honest about it. Nobody except for maybe Javon Holland, who's having an all-pro caliber season out back there. He's playing great football. But other than him, the defense, the linebackers, David Long and Jerome Baker, they've disappointed. Christian Wilkins looking for a new contract. He's disappointed. Zach Sealer just got a new contract. He's disappointing. It's been a disappointing start for the Dolphins. And then you play the Bills, who have one of the best offenses in the league. This has the potential of a real shootout because I don't see the Dolphins really stopping the Bills all that much.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about.
You said it. You said shootout. I got to play it.
Shootout. I did want to ask you a little bit about David Long because he was one of my most underrated signing, my most underrated free agent signing, who I had on my list. And it seems like he's just really not, I don't know if it's just taking him a while to learn the scheme, but he's not really living up to expectations. And he got a pretty big contract. So what's going on there?
Well, first off, week one, he didn't play all that much. The Dolphins played a lot more nickel, which means they had Andrew Van Ginkel out there playing the middle linebacker spot instead of David Long.
Right. And
then when David Long's been out there, he kind of he disappears.
He looked lost.
Yeah, he just disappears. And it's I agreed with you in the offseason. When the Dolphins signed David Long, I said if this guy can stay healthy, he's gonna ball out for the Dolphins. He's gonna go out there. And even in the preseason, you'd see him slash through the offensive line, make some plays behind the line of scrimmage. Like, that's who David Long was in Tennessee. That's who I thought he was going to be in Miami. And thus far, it hasn't really played out that way. So maybe it is him learning the scheme a little bit more. Maybe it's not enough playing time. But when he is out there, he's not really making much of an impact. There was a play last week against the Broncos where Jerome Baker and David Long had Javonte Williams dead to rights. And they both tried to tackle at the same time, just bounced right off of them. Javonte Williams just ran right through them. And that's kind of indicative of the way the linebackers have played thus far this season.
Yeah, and I feel like it's quite the contrary for our linebackers right now, who have been playing. I mean, Matt Milano, we already knew who he was, but we were so unsure of how Terrell Bernard would fit in as that new inside linebacker, and he's been nothing but incredible this entire year. Ends up winning Defensive Player of the Week this past week, and I just hope he continues that against your Finns because we're going to need it in the middle there, especially with how good the running game has been. So I was just curious about the David Long thing because I haven't heard much about him, and I watched a little bit of tape on the Finns, and he just didn't look the part, man. He didn't look like the same player. Yeah.
I mean, there's not much to say about David Long because he hasn't really done much.
Yeah, right. Vic Fangio. Yeah, this is true. Very true.
Yeah. Vic Happy coming in. Just for the folks that are listening, Vic Fangio has a certain system, almost like Dan Quinn. You have to win your position. Long is struggling with that. Yeah.
And Andrew Van Ginkel, who, was always a backup type player for the Dolphins. He was a great depth piece. He's been a great depth piece his entire career. Andrew Van Ginkel's been the best linebacker on the Dolphins thus far.
He's been great, man.
Yeah.
Makes some big plays, actually, in your history here, too, over the last 3 seasons.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But he was always like one of those spot players. And he would come in, make a play, and then you wouldn't see him for the rest of the game. Well, this year he's coming in, he's making an impact, and he's staying in the game. And to Vic Fangio's credit, he's really figured out a way to deploy Andrew Van Ginkel in a way that suits his talents best. Whether it's at middle linebacker or off the edge, Andrew Van Ginkel's had a really nice season thus far.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Jake, let me throw it to you on the defensive side of the Bills and talk about, first of all, how the heck are we going to control this track team? I mean, we've got some guys back from last year that people are saying are a little slower, older. I mean, they're obviously older. And as you get older, I can attest to that you get a little slower. But you got those safeties. It's good to have them back. But people have been saying, yeah, they look a little slower. And when you're playing against a team like this that is just, they're all track stars, how do you contain that? So talk to me about what you see, what our defense is going to have to do to deal with this offensive side of the ball for the Dolphins.
Well, I've seen some of the weaknesses on the interior of that offensive line from time to time, as Keith had sort of mentioned. So I really would like to see Daquan Jones and Poona Ford. I want to see Poona Ford active this week. I know he was inactive last week, a healthy scratch. We ended up activating Kingsley Jonathan instead. I think you take a little bit of a different approach. I want you to jam up the middle there. Ed Oliver's been playing out of his mind lately. Daquan Jones is a taller, bigger nose/D tackle, and he can get his hands up a little bit. I think, jamming these guys back into Tua's face a little bit, getting them a little, you got to put the pressure on him a little bit. Not necessarily like sacking him all the time, but at least getting a little handsy with them. Obviously getting your hands in the air, that's huge, because that's really the biggest way you're going to throw this passing game off. They're so quick. They're so able. I mean, it's amazing how well they're able to get open and throw these guys open. So that's your best bet, honestly. I think the linebackers are going to have to stay very honest. They can't get sucked in too much. I think, again, tackling, getting guys down on the ground and not allowing them to miss one or make one person miss, because they're going to end up taking it the distance and making a big play. So that's really going to be the key for us. I know that sounds really cliche and really boring, but that's honestly what we have to do.
So are you concerned with those slower safeties back there? And
I am.
Talk a little bit about the middle linebacker that some folks may not know about. Terrell Bernard seems to be a diamond in the rough that we found.
Yeah, absolutely. So going to the safeties, I love Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. Their football IQ is through the roof. There's not a smarter safety tandem in the league, and I still think they are the best safety tandem. The only thing now is you can tell they're kind of a step slower than last season. And I think had they been in the game last year against Miami, down in Miami, we win that ball game. That Jalen Waddle pass doesn't happen. Instead, we have both Jaquan Johnson and DeMar Hamlin out there instead of both Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde. That's a big difference there. It's a big drop-off. Now, this season, if that happens, I think they'll be in the right place. But sometimes when you have a guy one-on-one like that, you also can just burn right by him. So I'm hoping, with their IQ, they can make up for the slower step that they had this season. So while I am, still very confident with them back there, you can definitely notice a little bit of a difference there. But I think their IQ is going to allow them to still play at a high level.
Jake,
now,
can I ask you, I don't know why, and maybe I'm way off here, but I don't know why more teams don't play the Dolphins press man
agree.
And send pressure at Tua, because Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, for all the things they do well, they are not big, strong guys.
No,
you get a cornerback who jams them at the line, bring pressure on Tua. That seems like more of a recipe for success. And I don't know why more teams don't do that against the Dolphins.
I'm so happy you said that, because I was actually just going to make another point here about Kaiir Elam actually being active for this game. So last year against the Finns, he did a tremendous job on Tyreek Hill. And while he's been a healthy and active scratch this entire season, not even playing specials, which is absolutely wild as a first-round pick. You hate seeing that. he was fantastic in those bigger games, both against the Chiefs and the Dolphins last year. And that is his MO. He is a press man corner. He gets physical. Sometimes he's a little too handsy, but I'll take an aggressive penalty like that, especially against a team like this. Now, if you have help on the back end, that's okay. With him, I think just kind of getting in these guys' heads a little bit, getting physical with them at the line of scrimmage, that's huge. And he did an awesome job last year. And I thought he was just perfect against Tyreek, man. I mean, really kind of kept him somewhat invisible in that game that we won 32-29 on Saturday night.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that the Bills actually opt to activate him for this game.
I certainly would.
Yeah, not sure if they're going to do it or not, but I think this would be the game to do it. So yeah, I'm with you on that. I appreciate you bringing up that point. I think you're spot on with that, Keith.
Yeah, so Jake, I agree with you. I don't know if they're going to do it, though. I mean, do you just bring him up? He hasn't had any, in-game season. I mean, he played in preseason. Obviously, he's there practicing against some of the best all week long. But, man, I hope we get to see him because, like you said, he shined in some big games last year, and this is his type of game, press coverage. I do want to ask you about Benford and Trey. How do you see them in press coverage?
I think Trey is better at it, actually, and that's been an area where – this year, I don't know if he's really been the same player. You can kind of tell a little bit that he struggled a little bit. I think it's taken him a little bit more time to get back to where he used to be. But it was great that he got an interception last week. That's great for his confidence. I think Trey can do it. Christian Benford, I think he can do it as well. I mean, he's definitely played above expectations. That's not typically the scheme that obviously he's only played with the Bills, but even at Villanova, I think he played more of a zone scheme there, and he was also a safety there too. So he that's not really his thing necessarily. Do I think he can do it? He is a bigger corner. He can get physical. I've seen it. I think it's worth a shot, but really out of those three guys, talking Kaiir Elam, Trey White, and Christian Benford, I think Kaiir Elam is the best at that, and that's his thing, man.
I just think the point is to throw these guys off their routes and kind of throw the timing off, the kind of disrupt this anticipation with which Tua has been throwing the ball. And then, you bring Matt Milano or you bring Terrell Bernard, on a blitz, or, even a safety blitz, bring the heat and really test this Dolphins offensive line that hasn't really been tested all that much this season. I mean,
would you run some cover zero, Keith?
Yeah, I don't see why not.
Yeah.
I mean, it's high risk, high reward, obviously, but at this point, what do you have to lose against this Dolphins team? You press the receivers, you throw them off their routes, throw the timing of the offense off, and bring the house. Against this offensive line that, while they have improved, we also don't know how much they've improved, and you really want to test them. You really want to lean on them and see if they'll tip over, that sure. If I'm the Bills, I try at least a little bit of that to try and throw the Dolphins off a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. Big Happy out there saying it's hard to make a move and get hands up in 2.2 seconds, which is what Anthony said on the Summit show last night. And although people, I think, are there were some folks saying, the O-line's not as good as people are thinking because he's getting the ball out 2.2 seconds. I don't know what film you're watching, but I've been watching a lot of film. And when he's needed time, he's had time. He's had a time to what I used to say, smoke a cigarette. It's not cool to smoke a cigarette anymore, but he had time to light up a cigarette. It's got to be a new term for that. But, he's had time when he needs it. And in 2.2 seconds, let me just say this. Tyreek Hill, you would think these are like Joe Burrow-esque 3-yard passes, 5-yard passes. No. I mean, he's got Tyreek Hill who can get 15 yards down the field in 2 seconds, and he hits them in stride. That's so tough. So tough to go up against. But, dude, this is going to be insane. Now, does anyone remember, do either of you guys remember, how did we do against Tyreek last year as far as numbers go? Did he exceed 100 yards? Did we keep him under 100 in most of the games?
Well,
I don't think he did either.
He caught a long touchdown pass up in Buffalo in December. I remember that because I had him on my fantasy team last year, and I remember cheering. But let's see.
I can tell you right now.
Yeah.
So last year, let's see. So going back to that December game, In that game, he had 9 catches for 69 yards. And in the first game, he had 2 catches for 33 yards.
Wow.
So pretty damn good job. And a lot of those catches against us in that December game, it was all short yardage throws. I mean, and we kept them in front of us the whole time.
Yeah.
So that was with a Trey White who wasn't fully recovered from the ACL tear. It was also with a not Christian Benford, but Kyer Elam. And so again, Jake, I don't know. So back to the Kyer Elam just for a little bit. 3 inactive weeks. You would have thought if they're planning on bringing him up, I don't think they're just stashing him. But you would think they would let him get a little rust off, and maybe one of these games, maybe last week would have been a good opportunity. But let me say this: if they bring him up, who are you sending out? Who are you making inactive?
Oh man, it's tough. Cam Lewis. Do we make Cam Lewis inactive and roll with 3 safeties out there with Taylor Rapp? I mean, I think you definitely could do that. I think that would make the most sense in this case. I think guys like Saran Neal are too valuable for special teams to make him inactive. I know Cam Lewis is a very good special teams player
Lewis
as well.
has been making some nice plays on special teams.
He has, but I like Saran because he can also play nickel, and I know Cam Lewis can also play corner too. But I think with Saran being a bigger physical guy, it's a much better situation. And also, Taron Johnson is a little banged up. I know he's going to probably play, but he is a little injured as well. He was limited today in practice. So I'd rather have a backup nickel guy that plays nickel specifically instead of Cam Lewis there.
All right, I can see that. I'm a Cam Lewis fan, but if it means getting Kyer on the field, I'm okay with it. And I think that he could have an impact on this game. I
mean, talking press man, I mean, Saran Neal's a guy that can do that as well.
Yeah.
He did it against Travis Kelce extremely well. So, yeah, again, that could be another method.
We saw him a lot in preseason, a lot. I mean, I was wondering, are they just showcasing this guy or are they going to let him go? But he was so good in preseason, and he's physical, like you said. You've loved that guy. Since the day I met you, you've talked nothing about good things about him because he brings a big physical presence, and he's fast.
He's one of the fastest guys on the team.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So we got Troy out there. I know you left already, but you're going to rewatch this. He says, I'm not slower, getting older. I had mentioned that earlier. I can attest to the fact that let me just say this. That is fake news right there. My man is not as fast as he once was. Let's see here. And then the Mad Chatter. Good to see you out there, Mad Chatter. I've seen you on the last few shows.
Thumbs up, baby.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us. And again, I always forget. Let me throw it to Johnny real quick.
For more awesome content, like and subscribe now.
All right, Johnny.
That thing is awesome.
Thank you, Johnny. Yeah, if you're new to the channel, please like, comment. And one thing Johnny doesn't say that I've been trying to get him to say is drop a nickel on that subscribe button. We really appreciate it. Thank you. And then we got Block. That's a cool little lion. Bills matter. Bills do matter.
They sure do matter. You're damn
matter.
right. How about Kyer Elam? Does he matter? Because he's been inactive the last 3 weeks. I'd love to hear your take on him.
Yeah, the channel's been a little quiet. I know there's some folks out there. I'd love to hear your takes on Kyer Elam. Yeah, what's going on? Is we going to bring him up this week? We need him. We certainly do.
But why has he been inactive, Jake?
I don't know. There's been really no rhyme or reason about it. He's healthy. He seems totally fine. I looked it up on Twitter just to see if there was anything out there. And the only thing I saw was just a sound bit of him basically just saying, I'm here when they need me. And he's still been working hard in practice. His attitude seems right. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Jimmy Smith, the former corner for the Ravens, back when he first came into the league. He was a healthy and active a few games. Took him a little bit longer to get onto the field. It was really like his 3rd season where he started to shine a little bit. Became a very solid corner in the NFL. And he had his injury issues too, but Kyer really hasn't had a whole lot of that, and his bloodlines are great. I mean, his dad played safety for the Browns and the Cowboys. Actually, Big Happy, you probably remember Abram Elam back in the day. He played a little bit for you guys. And then his brother, Matt Elam, was kind of a bust for the Ravens, but got some playing time as well. Former first-round pick for them, played safety for him. So, yeah, I mean, the guy has it. He's definitely, he can be an absolute dog out there. I think it's just a matter of putting everything together for him, and why not get him out there this week?
Yeah, Keith, to add to that, I think the biggest thing is he's handsy, and he's been, and in camp, I mean, I know Diggs was going at him. I mean, I don't know what was happening, but in camp, it felt like there were some scuffles or whatever because he was being so handsy. And I think they were just trying to instill it in him that that's going to cost us a game if you're doing that. Now, we've said there are other top corners that are handsy. You can get away with it, and like Jake said, I think a little earlier, it's a high reward. It's a risk. What is it? High
risk, high reward.
High reward type situation where he can make a play. I feel like of all our corners right now, he's the fastest. He's the biggest. He can make a game-changing play, but also he can have that PI. But we've seen, I mean, Benford, I think, has had a PI this year. I think
it was ticky-tack, though.
Every cornerback has a pass interference. And if you're making bigger plays, I'll take a few PIs. I will take a few PIs all day if you're making those game-changing plays. So the hands thing is the only thing I can think of, Keith, as to why but they brought him last year. He was doing the same thing, and I don't know, Jake. I don't recall ever losing a game because Kyrie made a pass interference. I do remember winning at least 2 or 3 games because of what that young man did. So it's baffling, Keith, is all I can say. And let's see here. We got Paul Glover out there. Paul, who you supporting out there? You a Dolphin fan? You a Bills fan? Going to be an insane game, absolutely. Blood pressures are going to be up.
Oh yeah.
I don't take medications.
My blood pressure's been up all week, Mike.
Yeah, I don't take medications for my heart, but I think I'm going to have something. I'm going to have a monitor next to me. I just don't know. But we're at that point of the show. Let's talk about. I'll throw it to you, Keith, first. Talk to me how you see this game playing out, and give me. I know you said it. I heard you yesterday. You'll save your prediction for today's show, but talk to us how this game's playing out in your mind.
Well, this game needs to be viewed as an opportunity for the Dolphins. They have an opportunity to really cement themselves as contenders in the AFC, a team that really needs to be reckoned with. And they have an opportunity to put the Bills, what essentially amounts to 2.5 games back of the division lead in this one. They need to come out and bring their A game. Paul Glover's a Dolphins fan. Nice.
Oh, there you go.
Nice. But I think this is going to be a shootout, Mike. I think it's going to be a real shootout. I think I said a score prediction of 32-29 last night. I'm going to up that a little bit. I think the Dolphins. I'm going to say the Dolphins win this one 38-37.
Wow.
Yeah.
1 point game. Holy cow.
This is going to be a really good. This is going to be a game that we're going to talk about for years to come. I really believe that. I think this just feels like, the Bills are the immovable force, and the Dolphins are the object.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. Sorry.
That's all right. I know you're just excited about this game and anxious. I get it.
Yeah.
I forget the word all the time.
Force. Dolphins the unstoppable force. The Bills the immovable object.
That's right.
And,
there you go.
And that's what we're looking at here. This is going to be just a good old-fashioned slugfest between two quarterbacks who are playing at the top of their games right now. Two quarterbacks in their primes playing at the top of their game. This is going to be a really great game. And I still don't know how it's going to go, but I'm going to give the Dolphins a slight edge, 38-37.
Yeah, appreciate that. Respect that. Jake, let me throw it to you how you see this playing out. And like he said, this is a huge opportunity for the Dolphins to go up 2.5 games, essentially 2.5 games on the Bills in week 4. Now, that's not insurmountable. We know that. But it is so huge if you go up 2 games after 4 weeks of football. So talk to me how you see this game playing out, Jake, and give us your score prediction for this game.
I think regardless, it's going to be a 1-score game either way. But I have learned ever since I was a young boy, anytime a Bills game has been hyped up to be this high-scoring thing or this crazy game, and it's supposed to be the game of the year, it doesn't always necessarily disappoint, but it doesn't usually live up to what's supposed to happen. Crazy things happen all the time in these division games as it is. And I think that's going to be the MO for Sunday as well. I think it's going to be a very similar circumstance to the first game last year in Miami. Of course, we don't have to worry about that dreaded heat this year, which is great. We're at home. It's supposed to be a pretty nice day from the looks of it. Yeah. Just a beautiful fall day for football. But I do think, like I said, it could go either way. It really could. And I think it's going to be a one-score game. I'm going to say the Bills end up pulling this out, though, 24-17. And I'm actually taking the under on this one.
What?
I don't normally take the under. Life is too short to bet the under. Life's too short not to bet the over. So I want to be with Keith on this one, of course, having the Bills win instead. But I just feel like the stats are still going to be high, but the score isn't going to necessarily reflect that. I think there's going to be a lot of game clock management, stuff like that. And the game is going to end on an interception, and it's going to be by someone. I don't know who. Maybe our boy Taron Johnson, Mike.
TJ, yes. All right, so that's a great point, Jake. I mean, it's obvious to smash the over in this game. It's obvious. I mean, you look at they dropped 70. The Bills have been lighting it up too, putting up 38, 35, a couple big numbers. You smash that. But that's what Vegas wants you to do. That's what they want you to do. And you're so right. These interdivision teams, when you're inside a division, they play each other twice a year. They get up for one another. I don't
Never
care.
goes according to script.
Yeah,
Never.
I don't care if they're the worst team in the NFL. If they're playing a division rival, those games are always so close. We've seen contrary to that in recent years, but most of the time, it is a very close game. They know each other so well. They see them twice a year, and sometimes 3 times a year. Like we saw the Dolphins 3 times last year. Back in those games, back in the 90s, and that we used to see those Dolphins 3 times a year as well. But so I still think it's going to hit the over. But Jake, I see what you're saying, man. I think some people can win some money if they bet the under. I think it's a 1-score game. And Keith, I think in our prediction game, our prediction show early in the season, I had the team splitting just like we did last year. And I'm going to give the home team the advantage. Bills Mafia. Even though you're coming into Buffalo and the weather is supposed to be great, I think it's going to be a beautiful fall day in the 70s, I think was what I last saw. So beautiful weather. It's going to be, and that's what I want. Beautiful. I want no weather affecting these teams. I want to see the best of what they got. So I'm going to say it's close. I'm going to say it's 34-31 Buffalo, win by 3. And
just like the playoff game.
Yeah. So I'd love to hear what the channel thinks. Again, I think it's going to come down to the wire. Oh my God, I can't wait for this one.
Also, Mike, you said this to me a couple of days ago. It's criminal. This game is not on prime time. It is absolutely criminal.
It really is. It really is.
We have to watch the Chiefs and the Jets on Sunday Night Football.
It's insane, man.
I know.
Insane. And that would have probably been a really good game had Aaron Rodgers been playing.
True.
But yeah, I mean, this is at least we have Romo and Nance. I mean, that's going to be fun. I always love hearing those guys talk. So, and I think Tony Romo is so back this year. Last year, everyone's complaining and saying maybe he lost his passion. The guy, I've watched some games with him this year. Sounds back on his game. Sounds more motivated and excited than ever. So freaking love it, man.
Yeah, I've never had a problem with Romo. I think he's pretty funny. I've been seeing. Have you seen the commercials with him and from Josh? By the way, Josh Allen, all over the commercials.
You see that new Pepsi commercial? Him dipping or putting the hot sauce in the Pepsi or whatever. I think it's buffalo wing sauce. He's putting in the Pepsi and stirring it.
I haven't seen that. That'd be something I would have done.
It's good. It's
back
good.
in the day
I'll have to send it to you guys.
When I was a Pepsi fan. Paul Glover out there excited and nervous. Yeah, man. I think we all are. This is it. This is the real test. Are these teams what they look to be? My dad says we made our predictions earlier this year. I predicted the Bills' second loss in week 4.
I did as well.
So Miami 37-34. Let's hope my prediction streak end.
I'm good with your projection streak. I think that's good. That's a good prediction.
The over hits. I mean, everything's good.
Oh, this is a big one here. Tom coming in at 42-38.
What's the spread? Is it -2.5 or something in the Bills' favor?
I wonder
what that is.
Last I saw was -3.
-3? Okay.
Yeah.
You telling me the Bills are favored in this game?
Yeah.
Seriously?
They should be.
At home.
I know. Yeah. Well, yeah, I know, Keith, because they are the king of the hill. But when you see what the Dolphins have been doing, it's I wouldn't have been surprised. But yeah, that's the same. Seems fair.
But that's what I've been saying this whole show, Mike. You don't get respect until you beat the king.
Yeah.
And they'll finally start to get the respect that they want and crave. Bills 2.5. Okay. They'll finally get this. If they win this game, they'll finally start to get and it doesn't matter how they win because they're not going to win with any style points in this one.
Yeah.
If they do.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's about it, Keith. I know you're on a time frame. I thank you so much for joining us. And like I said, you're the most sought after man on social media this week. And it's going to be fun, man. It's going to be a good game. We'll talk definitely after, Jake and I go live Sunday night, and we'll have the wrap up, and maybe we'll have you join us if you're available. I think Sunday night you're off, right?
It is.
All right.
If you need me, I'll be there.
All right. Well, if we lost, I don't know. Jake and I may not have you on there.
Fair.
If we lose.
Fair. I get it.
But no, I'm just joking. Did you guys compare stats between Tua and Allen? We can do that right now. I think you had that yesterday, Jake, didn't you? Did you have that stat?
Well, on the season, I had that, but actually in the head-to-head, I just saw that not too long ago. I think Tua was at like 999 passing yards, and then Josh is 4-1 in the last 5 games or something like that. And I think his overall record against the Dolphins is 9-2, but I think against Tua specifically, it's something like that, 4-1, I want to say. Don't quote me on that exactly, but I know that their stats look pretty good. I think Tua was like 4 touchdowns, 4 picks, something around that. Josh was a little bit better with the touchdown-interception ratio. And he's averaging, 55 rushing yards, you were saying, Keith?
Yeah, over his career, he's averaging 55 rushing yards against the Dolphins.
Yeah.
And like I said, that's something the Dolphins need to shut down. They can't let – Josh Allen is deadly enough with his arm. You can't let them beat –
He stiff-armed Zach Sealer last year, I remember. It was unbelievable, man.
Yeah.
Just threw him like a rag doll, and that's a big boy. I mean, talking a big 300-pound D-tackle. Ferris State, by the way. Freaking love it. D2 guy. A lot of respect for that young man. Good
Love
run
Zach
stopper.
Sealer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me give you that. And so, Jake, what you've been talking about, you were going off of all time between one another,
Okay.
right?
So it was all time.
No, is that what you're saying? I'm just trying to understand, because I'm going to give you the numbers for the first 3 games.
Okay.
Of the year.
I just had seen it. I think it was on Buffalo Fanatics. They posted like a screenshot of it. So I didn't have the exact numbers. I was just kind of spitballing there. But yeah, give me the exact. I'm
all right.
curious
So
to know what that is.
Tua through 3 games, he's thrown for 1,024 yards. And on 101 attempts, he's thrown for 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and of course, he's only been sacked 1 time. Josh Allen, on the other hand, is thrown for 728 yards
728.
on 110, so more attempts, fewer yards. So we're really working hard down the field. Defenses are making us do that. Josh is thrown for 5 touchdowns. He's had 4 interceptions. And let's see, rushing yards this year, let's see here, do I have that number for you? Doesn't look like I do. By the way, the QBR rating as well so the quarterback rating is 90.3 for Josh Allen. His QBR is 69.2. And then for Tua, man, Tua's been lighting it up, dude. QBR of 80. You don't see these numbers. QBR, of course, the QBR rating is, I think it's the ESPN algorithm, which is a much more updated, and it takes more into account. 82.9 right now. I haven't seen that number. I don't know if I've even
The highest I've seen is Pat Mahomes the one year. He was like 80 on the nose.
Unbelievable.
I've never seen 82. That's insane.
Yeah, and his quarterback rating is 121. So the QBR is the one I like to look at because it factors in more things, which include, rushing, all the stuff, everything that the person does. I was trying to see what, maybe I have it here, but I have his rushing for Josh. Yes, I do. So Josh has ran for, let's see here, 89 yards on 12 attempts and 1 touchdown. That nice little layup in the end zone last game. And that's something, Keith, you were kind of saying you need to spy him, right? You need to put a spy on him, and you're hoping that they do that. But
I like Brandon Jones for that, too, by the way. I'm with you on that, Keith.
Yeah.
He needs a position. He's like that rover type, too, so it's perfect.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, he hasn't played a lot of defensive snaps this season, and Vic Fangio has been saying, well, it's because he's been injured. He's coming back from injury. He doesn't know the system yet. The fact of the matter is that we knew in the offseason when the Dolphins hired Vic Fangio, Brandon Jones doesn't really have a natural fit within a Vic Fangio scheme. He just he's your classic thumping strong safety. He's your Steve Atwater, that's not Vic Fangio doesn't have that. When the Dolphins signed Deshaun Elliott, that was kind of the guy they were looking to pair with Javon Holland. and Brandon Jones was kind of the odd man out. But this might be his time to shine. Who knows?
Trek Revere has been coming in with some crazy,
Freaking love it,
crazy
man.
predictions.
Said this yesterday. He said 42-9 yesterday. Now he's saying 42-3. I love it, man. Hell yeah.
42-3.
So, Tom, are we going to do another charity? We've talked about it. I've actually reached out to the Punt Foundation. They did respond to me, and they said, and this is for you and I, Jake. They said, let them know some times that we can get on a call with them. They even said, hey, they thought I was in Buffalo. They said, you can come down to the facility as well. We can talk there. And I'm like, well, maybe Jake will.
Yeah, I'll do it.
He is local. So we are talking about it, Tom. And if we get it going here soon, I think it'll be fantastic. We got off to a late start last year, and it turned out to be incredible. So we might do it again this year. We're talking about it. And I always get the two Tom. I mean, is this... there's
is this
two
Gallagher
Toms.
Boy Tom, or is this is this two Toms, or is it the same Tom?
Yeah, I don't know. I get them confused. I think this is the other Tom who actually came up with the idea for us to do a charity last year.
Yeah.
Could be wrong.
Yep.
So we'll see. So hopefully, Tom, yes, we love doing charities, and of course, right around the holidays is the perfect time for that. All right, guys, that's it. I know Keith's got to get going. Thank you again, Keith. We shall see Sunday who the king of the hill is. Bills win, they're in first place. Dolphins win, they take a commanding lead on first place. So let's go. Jake, thank you as always. You're amazing. Keith, you're amazing. Go Bills.
Go Bills.
Go Fins. Go Fins.